We spend almost all of our time in them, yet when it comes to thinking about how to protect the planet from the climate crisis, we don't often think about the buildings in which we work, live, and socialize in. Buildings are huge consumers of energy and are therefore responsible for enormous amounts of carbon emissions, from new construction to retrofitting, from commercial properties to homes. In this episode, we look at how decarbonizing the built environment can play a huge role in meeting our net zero targets by 2050.
The buildings and construction sector is responsible for almost 40% of energy-related carbon emissions worldwide.
That means that no level of climate protection is achievable without addressing the built environment.
If you add up all the commitments companies have made about sustainability and the carbon emissions that will take out, we're still at about the 20 to 25% mark of where we need to be to stay below 1.5 degrees.
As populations continue to grow and we increase the consumption of energy, it's very important for us to find ways to improve our energy savings capabilities and to replace fossil fuels with electric processes.
The scale of decarbonizing the built environment is challenging. However, the technology is available now to take on that challenge. Electricity 4.0, the convergence of electricity and digitization, can unlock the net zero buildings of the future.
All electric and all digital buildings are the future for reducing and replacing fossil fuels and reducing CO2 emissions. Electricity is the most efficient form of energy and is the fastest vector to decarbonization.
Our view of Electricity 4.0 is the intersection of digitization, decarbonization, and decentralization. Digitization allows us to make the invisible visible. We understand how we're using energy. Then decarbonization is about moving from sources of energy to the cleanest one, and electricity is the cleanest one. And then finally, we think microgrids can make a big difference because microgrids allow for the source of energy to be produced and consumed closer to the building application.
To decarbonize the built environment, new buildings need to embrace sustainability from the design phase to construction and throughout their life cycles.
So how do we construct net zero buildings? I would ask first, do we need to build? Because the old building has already paid its carbon debt. There's huge amounts of material that has gone there. And if you build new, it's really simple. It's just the priorities are around thinking very early in the design around the performance of the buildings, the systems of the buildings. But basically, it's embracing energy efficiency first, making sure that you're also designing for the changing climate.
In order to get to a zero carbon economy, we will need to have both the grid and the built environment decarbonized. That means ensuring that we have the ability to do EV charging through our buildings and affordability for materials in the construction space that are zero carbon as well.
Citycon in Finland inaugurated a brand new shopping mall and urban center. Since the conception of the project, they wanted to be LEED certificate at the highest standards of energy efficiency. They incorporated building management systems and microgrids to reduce the amount of energy and to be net zero from day one of their operations.
50% of the buildings today will still be standing in 2050, and this rises to around 80% for developed economies, meaning it's not just new buildings that need to decarbonize, but thankfully, we have the technology to do that today.
So the retrofit challenge around the world is very important, in particular in developed countries where most of the stock that is already built will be around for many more years. Consumers around the world now need a little bit of support to have the confidence that improving an asset that they use day in, day out can actually make a difference in their pockets, in the planet, and also improve the quality of their homes.
It starts with looking at where there's waste in the system and deploying digital tools to make sure we're only using the building when we need to use it.
The energy efficiency movement is about creating economic transformation that benefits people, helping to build jobs in the construction sector, or in thinking about that ongoing performance of buildings in operations and maintenance. The benefits actually are economy-wide.
So digitalization is helping us achieve new levels of energy efficiency and accelerate our path to decarbonization. IoT sensors have the opportunity to send a lot of data to the cloud that we can then run through artificial intelligence algorithms to show us the way to accelerate energy efficiency and energy reduction in the building space. The second part is how do we replace fossil fuel energy in the building space by adding solar or wind in the building.
After moving into their Kallang Pulse building in Singapore, Schneider Electric quickly moved to retrofit the building to be more energy efficient, as well as installing solar panels to provide their own clean and reliable energy.
You know, for Schneider Electric, as one of the most sustainable companies in the world, we want to be role model in every single building in the world. I am in the Kallang building, which is a Schneider headquarters in Singapore. It's very interesting because this is a place where we combine the three pillars of strategize, digitize, and decarbonize, and making sure that you can monitor the building real time and implement a certain number of quick actions to make sure that you reduce your energy consumption.
But it's not just commercial properties that can benefit from net zero solutions. Building and retrofitting homes to be net zero don't just help to protect the environment, but they also create more comfortable and energy efficient homes.
Providence Homes is a home builder that we've partnered with for a long time, and what they wanted is more granularity and understanding of exactly where the power was being consumed and when. And what Wiser Energy does is it allows us to be smarter about that consumption, and that data then empowers the homeowner to make choices both in terms of consumption, waste, what they can turn off, and also time of use.
So imagine a house that is comfortable, that is adaptable, that you can understand. How is it adapting to the changing climate? Maybe through information on your smartphone. It's a home that is being kind to Earth, but it's also being kind to the people that are using it.
Businesses that embrace sustainable building solutions are not just doing their part to protect our planet, but they're also protecting their own economic and competitive edge.
If you don't have a net zero building, you will end up having stranded assets that will not be valued by owners or operators of these businesses.
If you have a very high energy consuming building, it's just not fit for your operation. It will be very costly to run, and it also has a huge carbon footprint that I think from a reputational standpoint you must avoid.
Young people want to work for companies that are responsible, and they want to make sure that they're spending their time working at places that are making a positive difference.
If we want to decarbonize the building sector, we have what we need and we know what to do. And now it's about actioning those commitments and solutions at pace.
This is a decisive decade for us to move to net zero buildings. In terms of creating the pathways that we need to get there, I think we have the tools, we have the techniques, and we have the technology.
I am very bullish about the future. For the first time, we have federal governments and local governments, financial institutions, industry, and consumers all aligned towards our path to decarbonization.
I'm an optimist, but more than being an optimist, I think it's important we're all activists. And never has humanity really faced a more important common mission than making sure that we stay below the 1.5 degrees C threshold.
There is dislocation, there is challenges, but humans had showed time and time again that when we are faced with a crisis, we know how not to waste it.
The world can't decarbonize in silos. Different sectors need to ensure they're working together so we can reach net zero. In our next episode, we will look at the sector that can act as the linchpin for decarbonization, the industrial sector.